Since the very first time I've had my coach's private memo group, people have always asked for this video. And that video is, what do I do when I get injured? How do I keep making progress? How do I keep training? How do I keep forward momentum? Because that's important, right? I think that if you look at the history of sports, if someone gets injured, it's the big injury and that layoff where you go all the way back to zero. That's the thing that really slows, kind of stops people in their tracks, takes them way back. And so what you want to do is if you can, you want to keep making some forward progress. And it could be forward progress on a new track, but you still want to make that forward progress. It's so healthy mentally, and it really will help you physically as well when you come back and you're fully healthy. So number one, the very first thing, consult a medical professional. This is not medical advice. If you got the all clear from your doc or your physical therapist or whomever to do some activity, then this is what you need to do, okay? What we want to talk about is how do you keep making some progress when you have that all clear for some stuff. And you know, some docs, some PTs, they'll say nothing at all, but ask them like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? Because most of the time they're not dealing with people who are really highly motivated in terms of what they want to get done, or they just are making these blanket statements because people are dumb, right? And they're going to go out and do, if they're like, well, you can do some stuff, well, people are going to go, on a broken foot, they're going to try and run miles, or they're going to try and, do box jumps or something like that. So we don't want to do stupid stuff. So ask specific questions of that medical professional. Hey, would this be okay? A lot of times what I hear, people will say, well, doc said absolutely no squatting. Well, no body weight squats? How do you get down to a toilet? How do you sit down in a chair? Doesn't make any sense. So the doc doesn't want you to do loaded back squats. Okay, that's fine. We don't have to do loaded back squats or no load above this amount. So what we want to do is try and figure out those exact questions. And if you're a coach, we try and communicate clearly and have great relationships with a network of providers that can give us this information, can say, hey, yeah, I know that you're smart and you can understand this sort of thing. So once we consult with a medical professional, then we start talking about location of the injury, right? Certainly if we're saying it's a lower body injury, gosh, we have arms, so we can train with the upper body. The severity of the injury. Is this something that really does require a bunch of rest? Is it like a traumatic bone break, right? Was this something really bad? That could require real rest of everything else. Jumping back in and squatting right away after like shattering your arm would be not a great idea. You need to take some time and let your body do what it needs to do, which is focus all of its efforts, not on recovery of other muscles, but all of its efforts on recovering that actual injury, whatever that is. And then we got to start thinking about what can you do, okay? So we said that, the severe thing, there's nothing. You could do nothing at all. That is a possibility. You could do one side, right? You could have a shoulder injury, but you could still do dumbbell one-arm snatches. You can hold something in that hand, and you could do all sorts of lower body stuff with that. Could you do one-sided movements? Do you need to unload the movements somewhat, or unload a body part? For instance, like back injuries, maybe we need to unload the spine, but we can still use the legs, right? So we could, do a belt squat type thing or something like that. Or do we just need to go lighter for a while? Some types of shoulder injuries, you might see where the athlete can muscle snatch and still be fine, but they couldn't full snatch. It might be too impactful or too difficult for their body to full snatch. So, but we can muscle snatch. So can you do nothing? Can you do one side? Can you unload, or can you go lighter? Okay, that's one way you can start thinking about it. The other is, then we say location of the injury, right? With back injuries. Typically, with a back injury, what I see is we need to unload the spine, right? We do stuff that like belt squats instead of front squats or back squats. We do more crawling patterns, right? Where we might be dragging a chain. That's a really good thing. That gets us some like traction in the back, gets us a little length if we have some sort of back injury. So we're working on things that unload the spine. And then what we do with back injuries is we usually go lighter and we shorten the ROM, okay? So shortening the range of motion is another thing you can do to help injuries, right? So in terms of a back injury, that might mean, gosh, that's really irritating when I get in this pretty deep hinge position. But if I bring the snatch up to a mid-thigh block and do a mid-thigh block muscle snatch, I'm doing something productive for weightlifting, but I'm not tweaking that back injury. I'm not putting myself in a kind of spot where I could have some shear forces or anything like that, because I'm pretty upright and short. So unload, lighter, shorter range of motion is usually a really good thing for back injuries that I have run into that are athletes can still go. Knee injuries, right? Knee tweaks. Okay, what is it? Deep knee flexion. So we can shorten the range of motion. We can unload it. That's a big thing. We can do a ton of posterior chain, right? One thing that athletes really lack when it comes to weightlifting is posterior chain strength. If an athlete has some sort of knee tweak, or a flare-up of tendonitis, whatever, let's get in the posterior chain. Let's do RDLs. Let's do like high bar trap bar or high handle trap bar deadlifts. Let's do single leg RDLs. Let's do a ton of stuff like that where we're not really using that front side all that much. Ankle injuries, just dealing with one of these with one of my athletes right now. What's the big cause? Is it going to be plantar flexion, or is it going to be dorsiflexion that is more bothersome? And then look at what we can do. Definitely can do the other side. We can do more balance work. We can do all of the rehab stuff that goes along with that. We can do more posterior chain work, typically if we got 2 feet planted firmly on the ground. With lifts on ankle stuff, again, shorten the range of motion, maybe make it less dynamic. Right, that's another big one. Can we make it less dynamic? So no feet movement lifts, right? No feet power snatches, no feet power cleans, no feet like push jerks. So we're not really going into extension. We're not jumping and having big impact or something like that. Shoulder wrist type things, and that's like upper body extremity. That could be it could be an elbow as well. If we have that sort of thing, we're gonna, we could do one-sided stuff is big. When it comes to squatting, we may have some issues getting back in the front rack. That could be troublesome. So that's when we use a safety bar a lot. We'll use a safety bar if we have shoulder or wrist issues that don't allow us to really freely get into a good rack position back or front. So those are just some ideas, right? So big concepts to think about, right? Number one, consult with a medical professional. I would totally encourage you guys to have a really good network of coaches who you can work with, medical professionals you can work with. And then what can you do? Is it nothing? Is it one-sided? Is it shortened ROM? So let's shorten the range of motion, or is it less dynamic? Which could go into the category of lighter. Those are 6 things you can do that would, 5 things you can do. Nothing is not a thing you can do, but 5 things you can do while you're lifting, right? You can use the other side, you can unload it, you can go lighter, you can shorten the range of motion, you can do it less dynamic. And all of those things are going to keep that forward progress going, because that's so important when it comes to athletics, weightlifting, any sport that you can think of. So anyways, thank you all for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Subscribe to my coach's private memo where I send out videos like this almost every single week, explaining stuff that I'm doing in training with my athletes. And so I hope you guys will enjoy this one, and I'll see you next week. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being a part of the Coach's Private Memo crew. I love producing these things. Please send me more video ideas you guys want to know, and I will talk to you guys next week.